Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's not your average Josh back here for another movie review, and today I am reviewing a movie that is coming out on April 14th called Mafia Mama, starring Toni Collette and directed by Catherine Hardwicke. But before I get into my movie review, I do want to say hit that like button, leave a comment. Also hit that subscribe button as well if this is your first time watching any of my videos, or if you are a returning viewer, it's very much appreciated. You can also follow me on TikTok, and you can add me on Snapchat, where I will post similar content to this. But for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube channel, Not Your Average Josh. So again, I appreciate all the support. But let's get into this review of Mafia Mama. As I mentioned, Mafia Mama stars Toni Collette and is directed by Catherine Hardwicke. The original story is by Amanda Sthers, and the screenplay is by J. Michael Feldman and Debbie Jehoon. And it is about an American mom who inherits her grandfather's mafia empire in Italy. Guided by the firm's consigliere, she hilariously defies everyone's expectations as the new head of the family business. I had seen a trailer or two for this, didn't know much about it. It seemed like a silly comedy movie that the overall concept, I just didn't know if it necessarily would work for me. With this being an action comedy, it feels very much like a movie that would have came out 15 to 20 years ago. There is a certain amount of suspension of disbelief that this movie asked you to have at certain points in this movie, especially near the end of it. That definitely stopped me from enjoying it or loving it to the point that I could have. But I did enjoy this movie very much overall. Just to start off with a lot of the positives, Toni Collette, she is, I think, really great in this role here. I am not too familiar with her career. The main thing I know her from is Hereditary, which of course she was really great in. That being obviously a very much more serious movie. I'd say about 60-40 comedy action movie here. The first about 10 to 15 minutes, I was a little bit shaky on her character, Kristen. She made a couple decisions that I wasn't necessarily on board with. Stuff going on in her personal life where her character really did come off as pretty pathetic. And, you know, a lot of times in movies, of course, characters will take journeys in movies where they start out pathetic character, I guess you will say, and then they make this journey into becoming a more powerful, strong-willed person. And that is definitely the journey that Toni Collette's character, Kristen, goes on in this movie. It was just in the first 10 minutes, she seems so pathetic and like so just not taking control of her life. Certain things happen to her where you're like, come on, stand up for yourself. It was a little ridiculous at first. But I will say the journey that she goes on, I completely bought into her character. As ridiculous and as goofy and funny as the situations in this movie do get to sometimes, I still was won over by her, and I wanted her to be as happy as she could be by the end of this movie. The writing of her character was just very well done. A lot of the actors that are around her in this movie are also very funny. It seems like almost every person in this movie has a moment, whether it's hilarious or low-key badass moment in an action scene. Everyone has their little moment to shine, I will say, in this, even though Toni Collette does take up the majority of the spotlight in this movie, really doing such a great job. The concept as a whole is really rather silly in this. You have Toni Collette just living a regular life with a husband and a son. Her son's going off to college at the beginning of this movie, and then her and her husband are having a little bit of a rocky part of their relationship, and his character is really just completely goofy, definitely plays into that comedy side of this movie where he's just kind of a loser guy who is literally Toni Collette's working all the time, and he's just is in a band and not making much money, just basically globbing onto her at the beginning of this movie. And that's really where I was like, come on, Toni Collette. I wanted her to stand up for herself a lot more. But then you have the situation where her grandfather, who is in Italy, a part of the Italian mob, passes away, and he ends up contacting her to say that she's going to be taking over as a new mob boss. And of course, that right there, if this wasn't a comedy movie, that would just be completely ridiculous and probably turn me off from watching the movie. With this being a more majority comedy movie, it worked for me overall. I can understand how some people, it might completely just be too much of a suspension of disbelief to have for this, but I thought Toni Collette really pulled off the character from the beginning. As I said, playing this really pathetic, meek person that never does what she wants, never does what makes her happy, just always about working and making her husband happy or her son. And you really see that transformation in this movie where she becomes that more strong-willed person. And it was a nice, funny way to put her in this situation where they did it well, where at first she's just going to Italy to be a part of the funeral for her grandfather, and then she figures out, she gets caught in this shootout that happens at the funeral, and then gets notice from a video from her grandfather before he passed away that she's going to be taking over the family as the mob boss. It is a little ridiculous, but Toni Collette really did a good job of pulling off a legit person in this situation. She felt very authentic. Like she wasn't like she immediately took over and was this badass or anything. She was against it herself. She had to actually convince herself as this movie goes. It does end up going the way where she starts to get more control of herself and starts to actually like the position she's in, leaving her old life. It's this very fish out of water scenario here. She's obviously this person who doesn't know anything about it, so she'll say goofy stuff every now and then. That's a little much. Really, okay, I get it. This is the comedy movie part of it. But it all worked for me. The humor was really well done in this. There was several times in this movie where the theater I was in, the whole theater was in a uproar of laughter. And so that was very surprising, honestly. I really just thought this was going to be more of a middle of the road movie where the comedy, and I will say even the action, was really well done here, really well shot. It was very entertaining. I was invested in what was going on in the action scenes, and there would be a lot of times where there was humor thrown in, and for the most part that worked as well inside these action scenes. It didn't deter or detract from the moment. It never felt like the tone was off or anything in those moments. And just, I think everyone that was involved here knew what movie they were in. It felt like the direction for each actor was very well situated. They all knew that, yeah, there's going to be some action moments and some semi-intense moments, which there is, but for the most part, this is going to be a majority comedy movie. They knew they were going in such ridiculous directions at times that they can't play this too serious, and I thought they had a good balance of that. This movie is rated R, and there is some actually intense, bloody scenes that I really did enjoy. I was not expecting. With some real, like, oh, fuck, type of moments in this movie that, again, I was not expecting, and I really did enjoy the violent aspects. It wasn't too gratuitous or anything. There was really only a few moments where they really went for it in terms of that, especially this one scene where Toni Collette is fighting off this hitman of sorts, and they really go intense with that, especially if you're a dude. It gets pretty like, oof, wow, they really fucking are going for the violence here. I was just really, honestly, overall just surprised at my enjoyment with this movie. It's not a movie that I'm necessarily going to run out to see when it comes out in theaters. As I may have mentioned already, it comes out April 14th. And it'll be interesting to see how audiences react to this movie. I think, the whole superhero era, not that it's over or anything, but I think people, the general audience, I think, is getting a little bit tired of just, only the superhero movies making money. I think people are opening their mind again to the fact of coming out to maybe some of these movies that are more traditional comedies or more traditional action movies that we don't necessarily get anymore, or if we do, they usually go to streaming. For me, I would definitely recommend this movie overall. I will definitely see myself potentially watching this when it comes on to streaming, whatever it comes on, Netflix, Hulu, whatever, HBO Max. I'm not sure what it'll be on, Amazon Prime. I would definitely see myself revisiting this again because I think the humor actually worked enough in this movie to where I would definitely want to watch it again. There was plenty of moments where I laughed out loud. I just thought the writing in terms of that was just very well done. And yeah, the story overall, it's not going to be the most compelling, not going to win a screenplay award or anything like that. It's not going to be in my top 10 of the movie of the year or anything like that. But I thought it was great to see Toni Collette in this role. And everyone around them, they all had just very surprisingly funny moments. Some characters I thought were playing completely serious. They would just have these random moments of hilarity that worked. It didn't feel out of place or out of character. It really fit the tone of this movie. And it was just a really fun time. They definitely played on the Italian mob, on certain pop culture references with that. The Godfather was referenced here a few times in this movie in a very funny way, I thought. I just had a pretty good time with this, and I was not expecting that. I thought this might be an okay to maybe not so good movie, and it was a pretty good time with the movies. A nice little surprise. Wasn't expecting it. That's what I think is so great about these Regal mystery movie nights that they are doing. Even if it's, not necessarily going to be the greatest movie ever, it's always interesting to see a movie that maybe you're not so familiar with, and that's exactly what I got here. One thing I did want to mention that I did not put in my original video, fucking homemade spaghetti, man. Homemade pasta, dinner scene of sorts in this movie that, man, the way the homemade pasta looked, it compared to me almost in a way, not quite to the menu at the end when Ray Fiennes makes that, wonderful looking cheeseburger, the juicy cheeseburger for Anya Taylor-Joy's character. Just had to mention that, honestly, as I was about to edit this video. And also, I did notice that I didn't necessarily shout out a lot of the cast by name. One person I especially wanted to mention is Sophia Novette as Jenny. She had some real standout, hilarious moments in this. It reminded me a lot of the dude who was in Get Out. I can't remember his name quite right now. He had pretty much every line was hilarious in that movie. She is pretty much like that in this movie as well. Obviously, this not being a horror movie or anything, but yeah, she was a real standout of just being hilarious pretty much every line she had. That is my main thoughts on this movie. I'm going to give Mafia Mama a 7 out of 10. Definitely surprised the hell out of me. Not the greatest movie in the world, but definitely better than what I thought it was going to be. But what do you guys think? Have you even heard of this movie? I know with all the movies coming out this month and last month, this may unfortunately get lost in the shuffle. That's why I'm very interested to see what the audience reaction is going to be to this movie, how many people are going to go out and see it. If you like Toni Collette, I think this would be a really great movie to go see. I think she kills it in this movie. If you're into Italian mobster movies, obviously this is more a comedy, but they do play on a lot of tropes in certain movies. Like I already said, they mentioned The Godfather and whatnot. If you're into anything like that, I think you would enjoy this movie. Whatever you think, leave a comment down below. Hit that like button. You can also subscribe to this channel if it's your first time watching any of my videos, or if you're a returning viewer as well. Any support is appreciated on this channel. Follow me on TikTok, and you can add me on Snapchat, where I will post content similar to this. But for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube channel, Not Your Average Josh. So again, as always, I appreciate all the support. Be looking for more videos very soon, and I will talk to you guys later.